recommending that the court should exercise its discretion and find that Mr. Vogel should not be eligible for release onto extended supervision at any point in the rest of his life. The restitution was discussed. We'd ask that that be ordered. I don't think credit's an issue. The court heard the trial and the nature of the offense and the facts and circumstances that comprise it, so I'm not going to go over every detail. Clearly, I think, though, this is one of the more egregious examples of an intentional homicide that I think this courthouse has seen in some time. You know, we see sometimes intentional acts that are born of frustration, of anger, of motive driven by drug debts and things like that. And certainly those are intentional acts. Those are intentional acts formed closer in time to when the person acts out of frustration or out of anger. Here, though, I think we heard evidence that would demonstrate this as a much more egregious example of an intent to end somebody's life. There was testimony and evidence concerning premeditation days beforehand, the volition and desire to fashion the instruments which were later then used to commit this crime that happened well in advance of the crime by the defendant's own testimony. The act of making the ligatures, the act of fashioning the toothbrush down to the manner in which it was, the creation of the bed sheets used to tie up the victim after the offense. You know, this is a very intentional act, and I think that speaks to the gravity of the offense when somebody goes to those efforts and commits those acts and has that forethought and that volition, again, to end somebody's life. We saw direct evidence of the defendant's attitude towards that offense, I'll say. I don't think we have seen remorse. I don't think we've seen any contrition. Rather, we see the defendant making jokes about having killed Micah. He's smiling. He's making guttural noises about what he did to Micah. He's gloating about it. He's, again, demonstrating a complete ambivalence towards human life, towards the life that he took. And that's an extremely aggravating circumstance. I don't believe at any point now that we've seen what I think could fairly be characterized as any modicum of remorse for what he did. And rather, we see kind of the opposite in pretty stark terms. Obviously, then, too, the jury found the offense was born of a hatred for minorities. And we heard, obviously, the defendant's own words about why he did this, and that was shown as well in various writings that were presented during trial. That's an aggravating circumstance. Again, the societal harm that hate and prejudice plays is significant, both to the victims that are targeted as a result of that hate, to the community as a whole. It's an aggravating circumstance for this case, and that's a circumstance we don't sometimes see. Sometimes crimes are motivated purely by financial reasons, or again, anger or personal animus. That's not what we have here. There was very minimal interaction. I think the only conclusion we can draw from the evidence we heard is the defendant wanted to kill somebody because of their race, because of their sexual orientation, and he did so. And when people act out of that motivation, that is an extremely concerning circumstance. That's an attitude and a belief system that is ingratiated, that's very hard to rehabilitate one from. And we saw it's not just words or lower level actions that Mr. Vogel acts upon and harms people and he damages property or says mean things. It obviously motivated him in this case to, in a very, very disturbing manner, end somebody's life for those reasons. So the nature of the offense, the gravity of the offense, the need for punishment can't be overstated in a case like this. We then look at the prior history of the defendant, and some of that was filled in a little bit in the sentencing memorandum. regarding some of Mr. Vogel's background. Obviously, he's been incarcerated since, I think, 16, either in the jail or now in the prison system. And he's obviously a young individual. With that said, the offenses that the defendant has committed in that short time are alarming. The underlying conviction for which Mr. Vogel is serving a sentence is attempted first-degree intentional homicide. I believe that's of essentially a foster mother or something like that. We heard some description of that. The circumstances of that case are alarming in and of themselves, but also when we consider what the defendant did in this case. The defendant repeatedly stabbed that victim multiple times with a large knife, put his hands around her neck, and was trying to strangle her as well. And it really, just in reading the criminal complaint in that matter, it's rather remarkable that that individual survived. But so we see a very concerning prior conviction, even though there's just the one. The defendant also, I'm aware, has a pending matter, which I think is relevant for character. As a result of that underlying offense, the defendant threatened the presiding judge and the prosecutor who prosecuted that prior case, attempted homicide. That was a Racine County case that I understand is still pending. But again, the letters that the defendant wrote to the judge and the prosecutor in that case use alarming language. I would suggest evince a lack of remorse, evince really disturbing thoughts and threats to kill, torture, skin alive, I think at one point, members of the judiciary, members of obviously public officials who are attempting to do their job. And I think that all evinces, the severity of the offenses, lack of remorse to this day, and I think a concerning lack of character. So when we look at what the defendant did in this case, the prior history, I understand the defendant's a young individual, and the state recommending that he never be released is a significant punishment. The state's of the belief that that is one wholly befitting of what the defendant did in this case, why he did what he did in this case, and considering the prior record. For the defendant to do this in a confined setting, in one of the most restrictive settings a person can be in, I don't know why there would be any hope or expectation that, if released in the public would be protected, both from his actions, both from his thoughts, both of his beliefs. I don't believe there can be any assurance of that. That's the state's recommendation. We're recommending that he not be released onto extended supervision and that he serve the life sentence. So, thank you.
And then we, representatives of the victim wish to address me at this time. Speak into the microphone, please. Thank you.
Your Honor, my name is Phyllis Laureano. I am the mother of Micah Laureano. And before I begin my statement, I want to say that I am so grateful for my family, friends, and to everyone that has shown their support for Micah. There are no words powerful enough to express the pain of losing Micah, who was murdered on August 27, 2024. On the day he was murdered, my life and lives of everyone who loved him changed forever. Micah is my son. He is my heart, my joy, my purpose. Micah was 19 years old when his life was taken from him. He was just beginning his life's journey. He was funny and had an infectious smile. At Micah's funeral, his dental hygienist came to pay her respects. Micah was a patient of hers since he was like 3 years old. She just said that he had the most beautiful smile, perfect teeth with no cavities, and just a wonderful boy. Micah was loved by so many people, touching so many lives. He had so many talents. He was so creative and passionate about writing. He loved to draw. He loved music. He liked to cook and bake. He was taught by his abuela, which is his grandma, and his titi M and R, which are his aunts. He loved playing board games, especially Monopoly. When I got Micah's property back from GBCI, my kid impressed me. He literally made his own Monopoly board that made me laugh and cry at the same time. He loved making videos and taking mass amounts of pictures. I thank him for that. That is why we have so many pictures, as you can see on the canvas, that's now just memories that we will cherish forever. Micah was kind, loving, hardworking, and was always thinking of others. He loved his family deeply and his friends. He had so much more to give to this world. Being incarcerated didn't stop Micah from having dreams and setting goals. One of his goals was to get his high school diploma. He was consistent about filling out the request to find out when he could attend school at GBCI. But the replies he got back always saying that the same thing, we'll let you know. With that being said, he still had hope, trying to survive this prison system, learning and coping the best he could. Micah would communicate to me daily with me, and he would call like 2-3 times a day. He also would write me letters. That was his lifeline, trying to keep his sanity. The last day I spoke with Micah was Friday, August 9th, 2024. Not knowing that this would be our last conversation, never being able to speak with him again, Micah wrote me a letter on August 20th when he was in the TLU, the restrictive housing. Micah's funeral service was on September 6th, 2024. The day after, on Saturday, I went to the mailbox and found this letter from Micah. Standing before you today, reading this letter will give you an insight to who Micah was. I would like to read his letter. There are some language in here, but I don't know if I can read or not.
It's up to you.
Okay, I will read it. It's dated 8/20/2024. To Mama Bear. Hey, Ma, I haven't wrote you or anything because not seeing you last week just completely devastated me. I'm not in the hole, but in a temporary lockup, which is because I'm under investigation. With all that shit that went down 2 weeks ago, I wasn't eating for days, and I was on the verge of committing suicide at one point. This whole thing kills me more than anything. Nobody is telling me anything at all about this, and they lost my fucking glasses, Ma. How the fuck do they do that? This shit sucks. Damn it. I should be able to call you soonish, but like I said, I haven't been out of bed much. I'm praying so hard that they move me to the MU, which is the loony bin, LOL. But that's where all the gays and he/she's go that are vulnerable and overly unsafe in general population. I guess it's 100% better than GP as far as safety, and they have washing machines and day rooms to be out and chill in all types of good. I would get church and school and probably a job too. I hope. If I don't hear anything or they find nothing, they have to release me from TLU back to GP, so that will be on the 30th of August, if all else fails. They can't keep me in TLU past 21 days. I also probably will be placed in a medium safeguard to safeguard me for the rest of the time I will be there. I meet with them for them to tell me on October 9th or something, a few days after my birthday. I'm turning 20. This is absolutely crazy to me, Mom. I'm glad I can live another year, and when I come home, I'll be 21. a big-ass baby laughing my ass off. I miss you so much beyond belief, and it hurts a lot, but 18 more months and I'll be home to you and Scotty and the family. I'm so excited, yes, yet also terrified to transfer to real life again. It's a lot to deal with. Do you remember the orange bendy pencils I used to steal from Rogers and the mental hospitals? That's what I'm writing with now, LOL. I have a hand cramp from drawing and writing so much with it. Gotta do what I gotta do, though. So I got a catalog for the glasses and looked at some pairs and found one exactly like the Warby Parker ones I had. Not to mention, they're only $21.98 for the frames. Not bad, right? Maybe you could order a pair for me because you have the script and it would only take a week. They're gonna charge me for a replacement pair, which is bullshit, but yeah, I'll send the number for it. And you can look at it online and let me know when we talk next. When I sent this, I sent this so you know I'm alive and sort of thriving, LOL. It's just a lot of bullshit, that's all right now. But I love you and hope to speak on the phone with you pretty soon. Tell Scotty I love him and let everyone know I'm okay right now. Love you, Mama Bear. From Micah Jellybean. P.S. I see the therapist tomorrow too. She was on vacation when I wrote her, but she can help me out a lot. I thank God that Micah wrote me this letter. It gave me some insight on what was happening to Micah in GBCI before he was murdered. The pain of losing Micah is something I carry every moment of every day. It is a pain that has no end. There's an emptiness in my soul that can never be filled. Every day is a reminder of his absence that shouldn't be. I'll never physically hear his voice again, see him laugh, be able to hold him and tell him how much I love him. The pain of knowing that I couldn't protect him from the torture he endured in GBCI weighs heavy on my soul every day. Micah loved his baby brother, Scotty, so much. He was so amazing and patient, helping me with Scotty and the challenges we faced with his autism. How do you explain to a child when they're looking for their sibling? Often Scotty will say to me, "Mama, maybe Micah will come back." He doesn't understand why his brother is no longer physically here. The impact on my son being murdered has no fair justice. I stand here before you today on Friday, June 27, 2025. The irony of this sentencing being on the 27th, as we are reminded once again the day Micah was murdered. Forevermore, the 27th of every month is a constant reminder that's never ending. I respectfully ask you to take in account the irreversible damage this crime has caused, not just for me, for Micah's entire family, and for everyone who has been affected by this tragedy, for those that have lost a loved one to senseless crimes. There is no justice that can bring Micah back. When you're deciding on sentencing, there must be accountability for whomever is responsible. Micah's life mattered. His voice was taken and silenced forever. But my voice remains. As Micah's mother, I will always stand by his side, and it's my duty to be his voice. I will continue to fight for the accountability and raise awareness. My son Micah is a strong entity. His soul is alive. That is something that no one can ever take from him. In his letter that he wrote to me, he states, "Well, I sent this so you know I'm alive and sort of thriving, LOL. I have a message for my son, and I know that in his divine presence, he can hear me. Micah, you are alive, and you're no longer a sort of thriving. You are thriving. This light represents and honors your eternal soul and guiding light to your new journeys and missions. You're so strong, amazing, and continue to make me proud. Even though you're no longer physically on this earth, your soul will always remain. And I love you always, Jelly Bean. Yeah. Micah, thrive, Micah. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Then I'll hear from the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. We are before the court today asking you to consider the possibility of change and the power of time to effectuate that change. I think the background memo that was submitted to the court does an excellent job of summarizing what has brought Mr. Vogel to where we are right now. I believe that the power of time to impact change is powerful, that over time, the anger and pain and trauma that Mr. Vogel has endured and has inflicted upon others can be whittled away. I believe that giving Mr. Vogel an opportunity to be released to extended supervision at some time in the future speaks to that possibility, that people can change, that change does take an extremely long period of time sometimes, but that it is possible. So for those reasons, we are asking the court to consider that Mr. Vogel be allowed to be released to extended supervision in the future. Thank you.
Jackson Paul Vogel, under the law, you have an absolute right to address me now concerning any matter on your mind or heart, as it becomes my duty shortly to pass judgment upon you and to sentence you under the law. Is there anything you'd like to tell me, Mr. Vogel?
I may not show remorse. I may not be able to understand emotion. I may not be able to understand remorse itself. It doesn't mean a person cannot be sorry for what they did at any point in time. Because I am sorry. But on the other hand, I don't believe in holding on to the past. That is something that we cannot change. The past is something that I have experience in holding on to. It's hate that's the poison. Hate that consumes everything. And that is something that I've held on to my entire life. To some great, horrible things that I've done, said. That doesn't mean that I'm not sorry for what I've done. That doesn't mean that I don't have a sliver of regret. Because I'm not showing remorse, because I don't have emotion. That's not something I can understand. I can't rack my brain to understand it, but I am still sorry for what I've done. That's all.
Jackson Paul Vogel, I address you now. So under the law, I extend you the same analysis I must give to every defendant. I must consider protection of the public, punishment of the defendant's rehabilitated needs and deterrence. However, you appear before me having convicted of first-degree intentional homicide. In many jurisdictions, that's a capital offense. And in some jurisdictions, the jury had answered a proper question, I would be imposing the death penalty today. However, that's not the law of this state. This state says a mandatory life in prison sentence must be imposed. That's my duty. The only discretion I have is whether I ascertain that you can be eligible for extended supervision. Well, we need to reflect on August the 27th of 2024. You set in motion all the things that bring us here today. You were a cellmate with Micah Laureano, 19-year-old young man, convicted felon, but he'd never been convicted of an assaultive crime. For everything I've heard today, you know, he was a young man who may have lost his way and hopefully would have had a life going forward. He had a loving family. I want to share with you that, you know, what you saw from the mother today was a human expression of grief. Grief comes from the ability to actually appreciate a human life and then to have huge pain inflicted when you lose that life. I'm an old man. I've had that pain many, many times because I've loved like Micah's family's loved. I try to also now look at the character of the offender, and the memo from your defense team helps me at least understand how you've arrived where you are. Just so Micah's family knows, he was beaten all the time. He was abused by every adult to whom he could have shown affection and from whom he might have gotten affection. The result of that is a note. It's Exhibit 17. Kill all humans. Then a derogatory term directed it to Micah, kill all. And then finally, another derogatory term directed to gay people. The first one directed to African Americans. But I believe he wrote those things down, but the most chilling thing is the first thing. Kill all humans. My life's experiences persuade me that to perfect the killing machine against humans, you would have to isolate someone, and then their only contact with humans would be pain and misery, so that their response, like an attack dog, is any time they are exposed to a human, they go enraged. Mr. Vogel, at 16, you were sent into the Wisconsin State Correctional System. 8 years later, you commit a crime in which an anonymous human being to whom you had no real relationship is placed with you in a cell, and in a very short order, you process the decision to kill him. You kill him in an opportunity where you basically garrote him with a clothesline. Your testimony is, in your statement, you put your knee up against him and then you pulled him back till he went limp, till you literally squeezed the life out of him. And in your initial statement to the police, what's so frightening is you were excited about that. You you felt rewarded that you'd taken another human life. That suggests so clearly to the court that with regard to my duty to protect the public, it's absolute. I believe you're a killing machine. I believe that after 8 years in the state prison system, there's been no change. And therefore, I have no ability to have an expectation that you will ever change. That you will either be a risk to every human being, to every guard, to every nurse, to every inmate, to anybody you are exposed to at any given time. You could flip a switch. They meet all the boxes. They're a human being. They are whatever. They are whatever. I'm bored. So it's the sentence of the court and the judgment of the law that you be confined in the Wisconsin State Prison for the rest of your natural life. I find that you are not to be eligible for extended supervision. I will order that you make restitution in the sum of $20,039 to the victim, PL, in this case. Is there anything further today, Mr. Saunders?
No.
Anything from the defense?
No, thank you.
That concludes the matter. Thank you very much, everybody.